February 14th is not just another date on the calendar. In the realm of the spirit, this day was circled, underlined, and marked long before you ever woke up this morning. There are moments heaven does not announce loudly, yet they carry eternal weight. This is one of those moments. This is not coincidence, not timing by chance, and not a message meant for everyone. This is the day and the hour heaven marked for you. And the reason you are hearing this now is because something has shifted above you. Archangel Michael declares that God himself has approved a release tonight. Not tomorrow. Not soon. Tonight. But here is the weight of this message. Only those who respond immediately will receive what was prepared. Throughout Scripture, there are rare moments when God moves not by seasons, but by seconds. Moments when obedience must be immediate, when delay becomes disqualification. This is one of those hours. The phrase day and hour is not casual language in the Spirit. It is used only when heaven has reached a decision point. When the preparation is complete, the resistance has been dealt with, and the final authorization has been given. This means what you have been waiting for is no longer in process. It is no longer being formed. It is already prepared. The question is not whether God is ready. The question is whether you are. February 14th carries a double weight in the spirit. While the world associates it with surface-level expressions of love, heaven recognizes it as a moment of covenant response. Love in its purest form is obedience. And obedience, when delayed, loses its power. That is why this message comes with urgency. There are blessings that wait patiently, and then there are releases that require immediate alignment. Tonight is not about effort. It is about response. Archangel Michael does not speak lightly. When he delivers a message, it is because a battle has concluded. Something that was contested has been settled. Something that was held back has been cleared for movement. This approval did not come easily. It came after resistance, after opposition, after unseen warfare you were never meant to fight alone. That is why this release is specific. It is personal, and it is time-sensitive. You may feel a strange pressure in your spirit as you listen. Not fear but wait. Not anxiety but urgency. That is because your spirit recognizes this hour, even if your mind is still trying to catch up. There are moments when God speaks softly, and moments when heaven interrupts. This is an interruption. A divine interruption meant to pull you out of hesitation and into alignment. What makes this moment rare is not the size of the release, but the condition attached to it. Only those who respond immediately. That phrase should stop you, because it reveals something critical. Not everyone who hears will receive. Not everyone who believes will move. And not everyone who delays will be included. This is not punishment. This is protocol. Heaven operates on order. When a window opens, it opens for those who are positioned to move when called. There are people listening who have been sensing that something was about to happen, but you could not explain it. You felt restless, alert, as if you were waiting for a signal. This is that signal. Others have been praying for confirmation, asking God for clarity, asking for one final word. This is that word. But clarity without action becomes regret. That is why this message is firm. Heaven has marked hours like this before. Moments when manna fell only for the day. Moments when the door of the ark closed without warning. Moments when oil multiplied only while vessels were presented. In every case, the miracle was prepared, but the response determined the outcome. God does not chase people into obedience. He calls, and those who move receive. This is not meant to create fear. It is meant to awaken you. There is something waiting that was prepared with your name in mind. It carries answers you have been asking for, shifts you have been longing for, and relief you have been praying for in silence. But it will not force itself into your life. It waits for agreement. February 14th stands as a line in the spirit. On one side is delay, and the other is release. On one side is familiarity, on the other is movement. Heaven has already chosen its side. The approval has been stamped. The command has been given. The only variable left is you. Do not underestimate the power of immediate obedience. One response can realign months. One decision can unlock what was held back. One act of faith can open what effort never could. This is why the urgency is real. This is why the timing matters. And this is why you were brought here now, not earlier, not later, but in this exact moment. As this message continues, what is about to be revealed will explain why Archangel Michael is involved, what exactly was released, and how to know if you are among those meant to receive it tonight. This is not information. This is an invitation. And how you respond will matter more than you realize. When Archangel Michael declares that God approved a release, it is critical to understand what that actually means in the language of heaven. Approval is not permission in theory. It is authorization in action. It means every requirement has been met. Every delay has expired. Every opposing force has been addressed. What was once held in reserve has now been cleared for distribution. This is not a promise for the future. This is a transaction for the present moment. And heaven does not approve releases casually. There are 3 stages to every divine breakthrough: preparation, resistance, and approval. Many people confuse preparation with approval and wonder why nothing moves. Others mistake resistance for denial and give up too early. But approval is different. Approval means the waiting season has ended. It means the reason for delay is no longer valid. It means heaven has signed off on movement. And once that signature is placed, the release is no longer theoretical. It is active. What was being held back was not small. It was not symbolic. It was not a consolation prize. This release carries weight because it was prepared over time. God does not rush preparation. What He prepares slowly, He releases suddenly. That is why it feels abrupt. That is why it feels urgent. That is why it feels like everything is happening at once. When approval comes, acceleration follows. Some of you have been asking why things seemed stuck even though you were praying, fasting, believing, and trying to stay faithful. The truth is, it was not about effort. It was about timing. Heaven was not waiting on you to do more. Heaven was waiting for the right moment to authorize the release. And now that moment has arrived. Approval also means accountability. Once heaven releases something, responsibility shifts. Before approval, waiting is obedience. After approval, delay becomes a choice. This is why this message carries weight. You are no longer in a passive season. You are in a responsive one. And response is measured by speed. The spiritual realm responds to authority, not intention. Good intentions do not activate releases. Immediate obedience does. That is why Archangel Michael's declaration is paired with a condition. Only those who respond immediately will receive what was prepared. This does not mean frantic action. It means decisive alignment. It means when God signals, you do not negotiate. You move. Many releases failed to manifest not because God withdrew them, but because people hesitated when heaven expected movement. They waited for comfort, confirmation, or convenience. But approval moments are rarely comfortable. They require trust. They require faith, that moves before understanding catches up. This is also why this message is being spoken publicly. Heaven is watching for agreement. Agreement is not silent. Agreement is expressed. When you align openly, you position yourself visibly in the spirit. This is why engagement matters more than you realize. When you like, comment, and respond, you are not just interacting with a video, you are making a declaration. You are signaling readiness. You are saying, I am present. I am aligned. I am responding. So take a moment right now. If this message is stirring something in you, do not ignore it. Like this video as a sign of agreement. Comment with a declaration that you are ready. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it, because alignment multiplies when obedience is shared. And if you have not already, subscribe, not just to a channel, but to the flow of what God is doing in this season. These actions are not casual. They are faith responses. What makes this release unique is that it was not delayed because of your failure, but because of its magnitude. Some blessings require silence before movement. Some breakthroughs require hidden preparation. The longer the preparation, the more sudden the release. That is why this approval feels intense. You are stepping into something that required time to form. There are people listening who are about to experience a shift so clear that it cannot be denied. Doors that would not open suddenly move. Conversations that never went anywhere suddenly change tone. Opportunities that seemed closed resurface without effort. This is not coincidence. This is approval in motion. But remember, approval does not chase you. It responds to you. Heaven has already moved. Now it waits for your alignment. This is not about striving. It is about agreement. The moment you align, what was approved begins to manifest. Do not overthink this hour. Overthinking creates delay. Delay creates distance. And distance creates regret. This is simpler than your mind wants to make it. God has approved a release. Archangel Michael has declared it. February 14th has been marked. And now the invitation is before you. In the next part, you will understand why Archangel Michael himself is involved in this moment, what battle was just concluded, and how his role directly affects what you are about to receive. What comes next will clarify why this release required enforcement, not just permission. Archangel Michael does not appear in moments of routine blessing. His presence signals enforcement, defense, and decisive action in the unseen realm. When his name is spoken in connection with a release, it means something resisted has been overruled. Something contested has been settled. Something delayed has been forcefully cleared. This is why his message carries authority and finality. Michael does not negotiate outcomes. He executes divine decisions. To understand why Archangel Michael is involved in this hour, you must understand the nature of what was released. This was not a simple answer to prayer. This was not a gentle nudge forward. This was a breakthrough that faced opposition. The kind of opposition that does not yield to patience alone. The kind that requires enforcement. Michael is assigned when heaven decides that enough is enough. There are battles you never saw. Conversations in the spirit you were never meant to hear. Resistance that formed not because you were weak, but because what was prepared for you carried weight. The enemy does not fight what is insignificant. He fights what threatened his ground. The very fact that this release required Michael's involvement tells you how strategic it is. For some of you, the opposition showed up as unexplained delays. For others, it appeared as confusion, fatigue, or sudden distractions whenever you got close to movement. Some experienced it as relational strain, others as financial pressure, These were not random. They were containment tactics, attempts to keep you stationary until the window passed. But that strategy has failed. Michael's role is to break containment, to remove resistance that human effort cannot dismantle, to stand where heaven has already decided the outcome. When he declares that God approved a release, it means the resistance hath been dealt with at the highest level. The verdict has been issued. Enforcement is underway. This is why the instruction is immediate response. When enforcement begins, movement must follow. There are moments when heaven waits patiently, and there are moments when heaven expects action. This is the latter. The battle is not ongoing. It has concluded. Now the spoils are being distributed. But distribution follows alignment. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not catching up. You are arriving at the exact moment enforcement made access possible. This is why you feel the urgency now and not before. Before, movement would have been blocked. Now movement is protected. Michael stands as a defender of those who move in obedience. When you respond immediately, you do not move alone. You move under cover. You move with backing. You move with protection already in place. That is why hesitation is dangerous here, not because God will withdraw, but because delay exposes you to unnecessary resistance that has already been cleared. Some listening have sensed a heaviness lifting without knowing why. Others feel unusually alert, as if something important is happening right now. That is because the atmosphere has shifted. Enforcement changes environments. It creates momentum. It removes pressure that was never meant to stay. This moment also carries identification. Michael's presence marks those who are meant to receive this release. Not everyone is assigned the same battles, and not everyone receives the same level of intervention. If this message resonates deeply, it is because this enforcement was connected to you. Heaven knows who it is for. Do not measure this by logic. Measure it by resonance. Truth carries recognition. When something is meant for you, your spirit responds before your mind reasons. As stirring you feel is alignment forming, and alignment is the signal heaven responds to. Before moving forward, a blessing is being released over you now. Type "I receive the release" in the comments if this message resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 914 is now activated. As you declare this, understand that declarations matter. They are not symbolic. They are legal in the spirit. Words spoken in agreement activate what enforcement has made available. Silence keeps doors neutral. Agreement opens them. What is coming next will reveal how to recognize whether you are one of the chosen responders and why this message found you now instead of later. Hold on. What comes next changes everything. This moment you are standing in is not just for you. It is a doorway for others who are still waiting to hear the call. As the word says, God is speaking now, pouring oil on those who will carry his fire forward, and every seed sown becomes a light in someone else's darkness. I feel led to tell you this directly. When you support this mission, you are helping heaven reach souls marked for release just like yours. This is not a donation. It is a prophetic act of obedience, a seed placed into fertile ground where harvest is guaranteed. The heavens respond when obedience moves faster than hesitation. If God is stirring you now, respond immediately through Super Thanks, channel membership, or PayPal. The links and QR code are waiting in the description. I declare that every giver will be met with open heavens, multiplied provision, and divine acceleration. You it now, and let your obedience speak. There is a dangerous misunderstanding many people carry when it comes to divine preparation. They assume that because God has prepared something, it will arrive automatically, But preparation does not remove responsibility. Preparation only removes uncertainty. What God prepares is guaranteed in quality, not in delivery method. Delivery is always connected to response. This is why many people live aware that something was meant for them, yet never see it fully manifest. They confuse preparation with possession. When Scripture speaks of things being prepared, it often reveals a hidden truth. God finishes His work before He announces it. He prepares before you have His. He completes before He calls. This means by the time you hear that something is prepared, heaven is not waiting to act. Heaven is waiting for you to align. Prepared does not mean automatic. Prepared means available. This distinction matters now more than ever, because what was approved for release tonight has already passed the preparation stage. The work on God's side is complete. The authorization has been issued. The resistance has been addressed. What remains is response. And response is never passive. There are moments in Scripture where people stood before prepared blessings and still missed them. The promised land was prepared, yet an entire generation never entered. The wedding feast was prepared, yet invitations were ignored. The oil was prepared, yet some vessels were missing. In each case, preparation did not guarantee participation. Response determined who received. This is why this hour is serious. You are not waiting on God to act. God is waiting on you to move. And movement does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like obedience without explanation. Sometimes it looks like choosing faith over familiarity. Sometimes it looks like letting go of what no longer fits where you are being led. Prepared blessings test readiness. They reveal who is alert and who is distracted, who is listening and who is delaying, who treats divine moments as sacred and who treats them as optional. This is not about perfection. It is about positioning. There are people who hear that something is prepared and relax, assuming it will arrive when convenient. But heaven does not operate on convenience. It operates on alignment. When alignment is present, flow begins. When alignment is absent, even prepared things remain untouched. You must also understand this. Prepared does not mean small. Often, the greater the preparation, the more specific the response required. Large releases require clear alignment. They cannot be dropped into unprepared hands. Not because God withholds, but because mishandling what is prepared can cause damage instead of blessing. That is why some delays were actually protection. You were not being denied. You were being formed. You were not being ignored. You were being readied. And now that readiness has reached its threshold, this is why the message has shifted from waiting to responding. Prepared blessings also expose intention. Some want the outcome without the obedience. They want the reward without the response. But heaven does not operate that way. What God prepares, He entrusts. And trust is always connected to obedience. This is not about earning. It is about agreement. You cannot earn what was prepared, but you can refuse it by hesitation. You cannot force it, but you can miss it by delay. This is why immediacy matters now. Not because God is impatient, but because the window is precise. Think of it like a door that is already open. The room is ready. The table is set. The invitation is real. But you still have to walk through. Standing at the threshold does not count as entering. Acknowledging the door does not place you inside. Only movement does. Some of you have been standing at thresholds for a long time. You sense something more, but you hesitated because you wanted certainty. But prepared blessings rarely come with full explanations. They come with clarity of instruction, not clarity of outcome. That is where faith is required. This is also why fear tries to speak loudly at moments like this. Fear wants to convince you that waiting is wisdom. But wisdom recognizes timing. And this timing is not negotiable. The preparation phase has ended. The response phase has begun. Do not confuse stillness with obedience right now. Stillness had its place, waiting at its season. But this hour requires movement. Even if that movement is internal at first, a decision, a surrender, a clear yes in your spirit. It matters. What was prepared carries your name, but it will not chase you. It will not beg you. It will not adjust itself to hesitation. It waits in alignment. And the moment you align, it moves toward you with speed. In the next part, you will understand why hesitation carries a cost in moments like this, and how delay can quietly shift outcomes without warning. What you are about to hear will bring clarity to why this message is firm, and why this hour must be taken seriously. Hesitation is rarely loud. It does not announce itself as rebellion or refusal. More often, it disguises itself as caution, logic, or the desire for more confirmation. That is what makes it dangerous in moments like this. When heaven moves decisively, hesitation feels reasonable, but it carries consequences that are often unseen until the window has already shifted. The cost of hesitation is not always loss in the grammatic sense. Sometimes it is loss by replacement. Heaven does not cancel prepared blessings, but it does reassign access. When a moment requires response and response does not come, the opportunity does not pause. It passes. This is why Scripture is filled with quiet warnings about delay. Not because God is harsh, but because timing is precise. There are divine moments that tolerate questions, and there are moments that demand action. This is the latter. When God approves a release, it means the moment has reached maturity. Like fruit on a tree, it must be picked at the right time. Too early and it is unripe. Too late and it spoils. Hesitation is what causes people to arrive when the moment has already moved on. Many people assume that if something is truly meant for them, it will wait. But that belief is not biblical. Calling can wait. Preparation can wait. Formation can wait. But activation often cannot. Activation happens in windows, and windows close quietly. The danger of hesitation is that it feels safe. It convinces you that waiting a little longer will bring more clarity. But clarity often comes after obedience, not before. When you wait for clarity before responding, you reverse the order of faith. And faith, when reversed, becomes stalled. Some of you have experienced this before. You felt prompted to move, speak, act, or decide, but you delayed. And later, you realized the moment had passed. Not because God withdrew, but because the timing shifted. The door did not slam. It simply closed. This is why this hour feels firm. Because it is not asking you to prepare. It is asking you to respond. Preparation seasons are gentle. Response seasons are urgent. They do not linger because they are built on alignment, not persuasion. Hesitation also opens space for doubt. The longer you wait, the more voices get involved. Logic starts negotiating. Fear starts presenting scenarios. Comfort starts arguing for familiarity. What began as a clear prompting becomes a debate, and debates dilute obedience. This is not about making reckless decisions. This is about recognizing when heaven has already decided. God has approved the release. That means the decision phase is complete. The movement phase has begun. Hesitation now does not create safety, it creates exposure. Other cost of hesitation is missed momentum. When you move in alignment, momentum carries you. But when you delay, you must restart movement from stillness. That restart often feels harder, heavier, and more complicated than the original step would have been. There are also moments when hesitation affects others. Some releases are not isolated. They are connected to assignments that bless families, communities, or future generations. When one person delays, the ripple effect spreads. This is why obedience is never just personal. It is communal in impact. Heaven does not rush people unnecessarily. But when a window opens, it expects awareness. That is why Jesus spoke about those who could read the weather but not discern the time. Discernment is recognizing when waiting is wisdom and when waiting is disobedience. Right now, waiting would not be wisdom. It would be hesitation. And hesitation in this hour carries weight because the release is already active. You are not being asked to initiate something. You are being asked to align with what has already been initiated. This is also why peace and urgency can coexist. Some of you feel calm but alert, grounded but aware. That is not confusion. That is confirmation. True urgency from God does not create panic. It creates clarity. It sharpens focus. It removes distraction. Do not underestimate how quickly moments shift. One decision, one delay, one distraction can move you out of alignment. Not permanently, but enough to change the outcome. And some outcomes are time-sensitive. Hesitation is costly not because God punishes it, but because timing honors movement. The blessing prepared for tonight carries tonight's timestamp. It is meant to meet you in motion, not in deliberation. This does not mean you must have everything figured out. It means you must be willing to move without full explanation. That is what trust looks like at this level. And that is why this message is being spoken plainly. In the next part, you will learn how to recognize if you are one of the chosen responders, those this message is specifically for, and why certain signs have been appearing around you leading up to this moment. What you are about to hear will bring clarity to what your spirit may already know. Not everyone who hears this message is meant to respond in the same way. And not everyone who hears it is among the chosen responders for this specific release. It may sound unsettling, but it is actually clarifying. Heaven is precise. When God marks a day and an hour, He also marks the people who are positioned to move within it. The question is not whether you are worthy. The question is whether you are aligned. Here are signs that reveal alignment long before a release arrives. These signs are subtle, personal, and often misunderstood. But when you look back over the last days and weeks, patterns begin to emerge. Heaven rarely moves without warning. It prepares the person before it releases the promise. One of the first signs is an inner stirring you cannot silence. Not excitement in the emotional sense, but a deep sense of alertness. Almost like your spirit has been leaning forward, waiting. You may not have known what you were waiting for, only that something felt close. That stirring is not imagination. It is recognition. Your spirit senses when a moment is approaching that requires participation. Another sign is repeated confirmation from unexpected places. Words, messages, scriptures, or conversations that all seem to point in the same direction. Not loud, dramatic signs, but consistent ones. Alignment is often confirmed through repetition. When heaven wants your attention, it speaks more than once. You may have also experienced a growing discomfort with things that once felt normal. Habits, routines, or environments that no longer satisfy or fit. This is not dissatisfaction for its own sake. It is preparation. God often loosens your grip on what is familiar before He places something new in your hands. Chosen responders often feel this shift before they understand it. There is also a sign that feels contradictory, emotional pressure mixed with peace. You feel the weight of urgency, yet underneath it is calm. This combination is not anxiety. Anxiety is frantic and chaotic. Divine urgency is focused and grounded. It sharpens rather than scatters. If you feel both pressure and peace, that is alignment speaking. Many chosen responders have also faced unusual resistance leading up to this moment. Not constant, overwhelming opposition, but targeted interference. Delays that did not make sense. Disruptions that appeared right before progress. Fatigue that came without explanation. These were not random. They were attempts to dull your sensitivity so you would miss the signal when it came. The fact that you are still here, still listening, still alert, means those attempts failed. Another clear indicator is timing itself. You did not find this message by accident. You did not stumble into this moment randomly. Alignment attracts information. When you are positioned for a release, you are drawn toward what confirms it. This is not coincidence. It is convergence. Chosen responders also tend to feel a strong sense of responsibility, even when they cannot explain why. A sense that what they do matters beyond themselves, that their obedience affects more than just their own life. This is because many releases are connected to assignments, not just blessings. And assignments require willing participants. You may have noticed that distractions have increased recently. Small things pulling at your attention. Minor interruptions trying to fragment your focus. This often happens right before a decisive moment. Not because you are weak, but because focus is dangerous to the enemy. Clarity threatens delay. Another sign is that old fears have been resurfacing, not to overpower you, but to be confronted. When God prepares you for movement, He often allows what once intimidated you to rise one last time. Not to stop you, but to show you that it no longer controls you. Recognition of fear without submission to it is a sign of readiness. Chosen responders are not perfect. They are available. They are not the ones with all the answers. They are the ones willing to move with the information they have. Heaven does not look for flawless people. It looks for responsive ones. If as you listen, something inside you is quietly saying, "This is for me," that matters. Truth resonates before it convinces. Your spirit knows before your mind agrees. That inner recognition is one of the clearest signs of alignment. This is also why this message feels personal. It is not broad encouragement. It is targeted instruction. And instruction implies assignment. You are not being informed. You are being invited to participate. Do not disqualify yourself because you feel unprepared. Preparation has already happened. Do not hesitate because you feel uncertain. Certainty often follows obedience. And do not compare your response to others. Alignment is individual. Your response will not look exactly like someone else's. If these signs resonate, it is because you are among those meant to respond. Not later, not eventually, but now. This is not pressure. It is precision. In the next part, you will learn what immediate response actually looks like in the spirit, and how to move without confusion or fear. What comes next will help you translate urgency into alignment, so you do not miss what heaven has marked for you. Immediate response does not mean reckless action. It does not mean emotional impulse or hurried decisions driven by fear. Immediate response in the spirit is something far more precise. It is alignment without delay. It is obedience without negotiation. It is movement that agrees with heaven the moment instruction is recognized. This is where many misunderstand what God is asking in moments like this. When heaven says respond immediately, It is not demanding perfection. He is asking for decisiveness. Indecision is what fractures alignment. The spirit realm moves on clarity, not on comfort. When instruction is clear, movement must follow. Immediate response means you do not postpone obedience until conditions feel ideal. You move while the window is open. One of the clearest signs of true spiritual response is that it begins internally before it manifests externally. The first movement is not always visible to others. It starts as a settled decision in your spirit. A firm yes. A clear surrender. A willingness that removes resistance. Heaven responds quickly to internal alignment. External steps then unfold naturally. Immediate response also requires letting go of the need to understand everything. Many people delay because they want full explanation. But explanation often comes after obedience. God rarely reveals the entire path at once. He reveals the next step. And the next step requires trust. Trust is proven by movement, not by contemplation. Another aspect of immediate response is agreement in speech. Words matter in moments like this. Silence is not neutral. Silence is hesitation. When heaven releases instruction, agreement should be spoken. This is why declarations carry power. Speaking alignment out loud reinforces internal obedience. It creates consistency between heart, mind, and mouth. Immediate response also means prioritization. It means recognizing that some moments require your full attention. You cannot treat this hour casually and expect extraordinary outcomes. What you prioritize reveals what you value. When you place this moment above distractions, you signal readiness. Focus itself is a form of obedience. There is also a relational aspect to response. Some releases require you to forgive, to release resentment, or to detach from influences that no longer align with where God is leading you. Immediate response may involve choosing peace where conflict was familiar, or choosing obedience where compromise felt easier. These choices matter more than dramatic gestures. Another important truth is that immediate response does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels quiet but firm, like stepping onto solid ground after hesitation, like clarity replacing confusion, like resolve settling in your spirit. That calm decisiveness is often the strongest indicator that you are responding correctly. Immediate response also requires trust that heaven has already handled what concerns you. Fear often asks, what if this doesn't work? Faith answers, what if it already has? When God approves a release, the outcome is secured. Your role is not to ensure success. Your role is to align with what has been authorized. Some people hesitate because they fear making the wrong move. But obedience is rarely wrong when instruction is clear. Mistakes are corrected when hearts are aligned. Delays are harder to recover from than missteps made in faith. God can redirect movement. He cannot use stagnation. This is why urgency is paired with peace. Peace confirms alignment. Urgency confirms timing. When both are present, response should follow. If you feel pressured but unsettled, wait. If you feel urgent but peaceful, move. That combination is not accidental. Immediate response also involves releasing control. You are not asked to manage the outcome. You are asked to trust the process. Control delays movement because it demands guarantees. Faith moves without them. And this release requires faith-level response, not logic-level comfort. Another key element is consistency. Responding immediately is not a one-time act. It is a posture. It is staying aligned once you move. It is continuing forward even when the initial clarity fades. Obedience is maintained by trust and not by constant reassurance. If you are wondering whether you have already responded, ask yourself this: have I made a clear decision to align without delay? Have I agreed internally and externally? Have I released hesitation? If the answer is yes, then movement has already begun. Immediate response does not mean rushing ahead of God. It means moving with Him. It means stepping when He steps, stopping when He stops, but not lagging behind out of fear. This hour is about synchronization. Heaven has moved. Now alignment must match. When alignment is present, resistance dissolves. Momentum builds, and what was prepared begins to manifest. In the next part, you will understand how narrow this window truly is, why divine opportunities like this do not remain open indefinitely, and how heaven responds when obedience meets timing. What comes next will deepen your understanding of why this moment matters so much right now. There are moments in the spirit that feel expansive, like seasons that stretch and give room to grow. And then there are moments that are narrow, precise, measured, and time-bound. This is one of those narrow-windowed. Not because God is limiting, but because timing is exact. When heaven opens a window like this, He opens it with intention, and it does not remain open indefinitely. A narrow window does not mean small opportunity. It means focused access. It means what is being released is specific and must be met at the right moment. Think of it like a key turning in a lock. Turn it too early, and it does nothing. Turn it too late, and the mechanism resets. The power is in the timing. Heaven waits patiently through preparation seasons. It allows growth, correction, and alignment to take place over time. But when preparation is complete, patience shifts into expectation. Expectation assumes readiness, and readiness is proven by response. This is why this window feels urgent but not chaotic. It is controlled, measured, purposeful. Many people misunderstand divine timing and assume God will keep offering the same opportunity repeatedly. But Scripture shows that certain doors open once, for a moment, and then move on. Not because God is cruel, but because purpose moves forward. Heaven does not stall destiny indefinitely. This window is open because enforcement has already taken place. Resistance has been removed. Clearance has been granted. Access is available now in a way it was not before. That access will not remain static. It is active. It responds to movement. When heaven waits for response, it is not waiting passively. It is observing alignment. It is watching who recognizes the moment, who prioritizes it, who treats it as sacred rather than optional. Windows like this reveal spiritual awareness. Some of you may feel a sense of pressure, like time matters more than usual. That is not anxiety. That is discernment. Your spirit recognizes the narrowness of the window. You are sensing what your mind may not fully grasp yet. Others may feel an unusual stillness, as if everything has gone quiet. That quiet is not absence. It is focus. When heaven concentrates activity, noise decreases. Distractions fall away. A moment becomes clear. It is important to understand that narrow windows do not close with alarms. They do not announce themselves when they end. They simply shift. One moment access is there. The next, the atmosphere changes. Those who move there are carried forward. Those who hesitated are left wondering what happened. This is why immediacy matters. Not panic, not rush, but responsiveness. When you respond within the window, you move with protection. When you delay beyond it, movement becomes harder, not because God withdrew, but because the ease of alignment has passed. Heaven does not threaten people into obedience. It invites them into opportunity. But opportunity requires awareness, and awareness demands attention. That is why this message is clear and firm. You are not meant to fear missing out. You are meant to recognize that you are here now for a reason. The window is still open. Access is still available. Response still matters. Before moving further, a blessing is being released over those who recognize this hour. Type "I move with heaven" in the comments if you feel alignment in your spirit. Blessing code 438 is now activated. This declaration is not symbolic. It is agreement. And agreement activates flow. When words align with decision, movement accelerates. As you align, know this: heaven responds quickly to clarity. Confusion delays movement. Clarity invites it. If you feel clarity settling in your spirit right now, that is confirmation. What you are about to hear next will reveal what happens the moment you respond, what shifts immediately, what breaks instantly, and what begins to move without struggle. You will be glad you stayed for what is about to be revealed. This window you are standing in is not only opening doors for you, it is creating pathways for countless others who are still waiting to hear God's call. I hear the Lord saying that every seed sown into this work becomes oil that keeps the lamp burning, light that reaches where darkness still hides. I am speaking to you directly now. Your support is a prophetic response, not a transaction. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are partnering with heaven to release messages like this to the ones who need them most. This is urgent because obedience delayed can mean souls delayed. I declare that as you give, rivers will open over your life, provision will multiply, and heaven will mark your obedience. Act now. The PayPal links and QR code are waiting, and this moment will not linger. The moment you respond, something shifts immediately, often before you see anything change on the outside. The first movement happens in the unseen realm. Alignment creates access. Access activates transfer. This is how spiritual transactions work. Heaven does not wait for proof before it moves. It moves on agreement. When you respond, you step into flow, and what was prepared begins to move toward you. One of the first things that happens is resistance loses its grip. Not gradually, but decisively. The pressure that felt constant begins to ease. The heaviness you learn to live with starts to lift. This does not always look dramatic, but it is unmistakable. You realize you can breathe again. Think clearly again. Hope feels closer than it did before. That is not emotion. It is alignment producing relief. Another immediate shift is clarity. Decisions that felt complicated suddenly simplify. Options that were confusing separate themselves naturally. This happens because confusion thrives in misalignment. Once alignment is restored, clarity follows. You stop overthinking and start recognizing what matters. There is also an acceleration that follows response. Things that were slow begin to move. Conversations change tone. Opportunities resurface. Delays that seemed immovable suddenly resolve without explanation. This is not coincidence. It is momentum released. Heaven honors movement with movement. Some people experience an internal shift first, peace where there was anxiety, confidence where there was hesitation. Others see external confirmation almost immediately. Both are valid. Both are evidence that response has activated the release. It is important to understand that this is not about instant perfection. Responding does not mean everything becomes effortless overnight. It means the struggle changes. You are no longer pushing against resistance. You are moving with assistance. A difference is everything. The moment you respond, you also step under protection. Alignment brings covering. When heaven authorizes a release, it also assigns guardianship. This is why movement feels safer after response than before. You are no longer exposed to unnecessary resistance. You are moving within a secured window. Another shift that occurs is restoration of authority. When you delay obedience, confidence erodes. When you respond, authority returns. You speak differently. Decide differently. Carry yourself differently. That authority affects how others respond to you. Doors open because posture has changed. Responding also reconnects you to timing. You stop feeling late or behind. You realize you are exactly where you need to be. That awareness removes panic and replaces it with focus. Focus is essential for sustaining momentum. This is why response is celebrated in heaven. Not because God needs affirmation, but because response confirms trust. Trust unlocks partnership, and partnership accelerates purpose. Right now, it is important to anchor your response. Do not let it remain abstract. Engage with this moment intentionally. If this message is confirming what you already feel, make it visible. Like this video as a declaration of agreement. Comment with words that align with what you are receiving. Share this message so others who are meant to respond can recognize their moment too. And if you have not yet subscribed, do so now, not out of routine, but as an act of alignment. These actions matter more than you realize. They are expressions of response. Heaven recognizes visible agreement. When you respond openly, you position yourself clearly. There is no confusion in the spirit about where you stand. That clarity accelerates manifestation. Some of you may wonder what happens if response feels imperfect. The answer is simple. Sincerity matters more than precision. God responds to hearts that move, not hearts that calculate endlessly. You are not expected to perform. You are expected to align. Responding also creates responsibility. Once you move, you must stay attentive. Momentum must be stewarded. This means remaining open, responsive, and willing as things begin to shift. Do not retreat into old patterns once movement begins. This is where many miss sustained breakthrough. They respond initially but then relax into passivity. Alignment must be maintained, not by striving but by attentiveness. Continue listening. Continue moving as instructed. If you are wondering whether this response truly matters, understand this. Moments like this do not come often. And when they do, they shape trajectories. One response can redirect years. One decision can alter outcomes you thought were fixed. You did not hear this by accident. And you are not responding alone. Many are aligning right now. Heaven is active. Movement is underway. Stay with this message, because what comes next will reveal why this release is different from anything you have experienced before, and why the enemy resisted it so fiercely. What you are about to hear will explain the depth of what is unfolding, and you will be grateful you stayed through this moment. This release is different from anything you have experienced before, and that is why the resistance around it felt unfamiliar. What is unfolding now is not a repeat of past breakthroughs. It is not recovery of what was lost. It is not restoration to what once was. This is transfer. This is elevation. This is movement into territory you have not occupied before. And the unfamiliar always attracts stronger opposition. In past seasons, your breakthroughs may have come gradually, piece by piece, step by step. But this release carries a sudden quality. Not because it was right, but because it was completed quietly. What took time to prepare is released quickly once approved. That contrast is what makes this moment feel intense. Another reason this release is different is because it is not centered on survival. Many of your past prayers were about endurance, getting through, holding on, making it to the other side. This one is about positioning. It is about where you stand next, not what you escape from. Survival prayers build resilience. Positioning releases authority. This release also carries permanence. So breakthroughs bring temporary relief. This one establishes something. It plants you in a new place spiritually, mentally, and often practically. That is why it required enforcement. Anything that establishes new ground threatens existing structures. The enemy resists what cannot be easily reversed. You may have noticed that past obstacles did not fully discourage you, but this season felt heavier. That is because the stakes were higher. When what is coming changes your trajectory, resistance intensifies. The enemy fights transitions more than destinations because transitions remove leverage. This release is also different because it requires you to think differently. Old strategies will not work here. Old patterns will not sustain what is coming. God is not adding something to your old life. He is shifting you into a new framework. That is why hesitation was costly. You cannot carry old mindsets into new dimensions. Another distinction is that this release connects to influence. Not necessarily visibility, but impact. What God is releasing through you affects others. That is why the opposition was not just personal. It targeted your focus, your confidence, your voice. Influence threatens stagnation. Movement disrupts control. This is also why Archangel Michael's involvement was necessary. This was not a gentle adjustment. It was a territorial shift. And territorial shifts require enforcement. Heaven does not announce these lightly because they alter spiritual landscapes. Many of you may have wondered why familiar methods stopped working. Why what once brought results now felt ineffective. That was not failure. That was transition. God was detaching you from systems that could not support where you are going. This release introduces new patterns, new rhythms, new authority. Another reason this release is different is that it brings exposure. Light reveals, and revelation requires responsibility. When God elevates you, He also refines you. This is not to restrict you, but to protect you. Higher levels require greater clarity. You may also notice that after responding, you feel a stronger sense of ownership over your decisions. Less dependence on external validation. More confidence in internal direction. That is authority awakening. Authority is necessary for sustaining what is being released. This release also comes with accountability. Not pressure, but stewardship. What God entrusts now must be handled intentionally. This is why alignment must continue. Not in fear, but in awareness. The enemy fought this release harder because it closes certain doors permanently. Once you move into this level of alignment, some cycles cannot repeat. Some patterns cannot reclaim ground. That finality threatens opposition, but it brings peace to you. This is not a release you outgrow quickly. It is foundational and supports what comes next. Think of it as a platform rather than a prize. Platforms hold weight. They require stability. That is why preparation mattered so much. You may still feel moments of disbelief. That is normal. Sudden shifts take time to register. But do not let unfamiliarity cause retreat. Stay attentive. Stay responsive. Stay aligned. In the next part, you will hear a final warning, not meant to frighten you, but to ground you. It will clarify what happens when moments like this are ignored, and why heaven speaks plainly when time matters. What comes next carries weight, and it deserves your full attention. This is the final warning, and it is not spoken to create fear, but to create clarity. Heaven does not warn casually. When a warning is released, it is because a moment carries consequence. Not punishment, but outcome. Ignoring timing does not make God withdraw his love, but it does alter how and when his purposes unfold in your life. This is why this message is firm. When divine moments are ignored, they do not always end with visible loss. More often, they end with quiet shifts. Opportunities move to different timelines. Assignments are out. Access that was once effortless becomes difficult, and people are left wondering why things feel harder than they should. This is not because God changed. It is because the moment did. Heaven speaks plainly when time matters because ambiguity creates delay. Delay creates distance, and distance creates confusion. God is not interested in confusing his people. He is interested in aligning them. That is why this message has been clear, direct, and repeated in different ways. Repetition is mercy. It gives you multiple chances to recognize the same truth. There are moments when silence follows disobedience, not as punishment but as consequence. When God speaks and is ignored, he does not argue. He waits for the next available moment, but the next moment is rarely identical to the one missed. It may carry similar purpose but not the same ease, not the same momentum, not the same clarity. This is why Scripture warns against hardening the heart when you hear God's voice. Hardening does not always look like refusal. Sometimes it looks like postponement. Later is one of the most dangerous words in moments like this. Later assumes time is flexible. This moment is not. Heaven has already done its part. Approval has been granted. Enforcement hath been executed. Access has been opened. What remains is response. And response is time-sensitive. This is not about worthiness. It is about awareness. Some people assume that ignoring a moment will result in another identical opportunity later. That assumption is not rooted in Scripture. God is generous, but timing is precise. When a door closes, another may open, but it may lead somewhere different. That is not loss, but it is change. His warning is also an invitation. It is heaven saying, do not treat this lightly. Not because God is offended, but because the moment matters. When God marks a day and an hour, he does so with intention. He does not waste preparation. He does not waste enforcement. And he does not speak without purpose. You may feel a tension as you listen, a sense that this matters more than other messages you have heard. Attention is not fear. It is recognition. Your spirit understands the weight even if your mind resists it. Ignoring this moment does not mean your life stops. It means you continue without the acceleration that was available, without the protection that came with alignment, without the clarity that followed response. Life continues, but differently. Heaven is not threatening you with loss. It is urging you toward alignment. Warnings are a form of care. They exist to prevent regret, but would rather warn than restore from unnecessary delay. This is also why the tone has shifted now. Earlier parts invited, explained, and prepared. This part clarifies consequence, not to scare but to sober. Some moments require sobriety. They require you to pause, focus, and decide. Do not assume silence means safety. Silence after instruction often means the moment has moved on. God does not chase people into obedience. He calls. Those who respond move forward. Those who do not remain where they are. This is not condemnation. It is truth. And truth is meant to free, not frighten. If you have felt resistance while listening, that is important to note. Resistance often rises when decision is required. Do not let resistance decide for you. Decision belongs to you alone. You still have access. The window has not closed yet, but it is narrow, and narrow windows require attention. They require decisiveness. They require humility to say yes without full understanding. This warning is the last pause before movement. After this, the message shifts toward assurance and covering for those who responded. That alone should tell you something. Heaven distinguishes between response and hesitation. Choose alignment. Choose movement. Choose now. In the final part, you will receive assurance, peace, and divine covering for those who have responded. It will bring calm, clarity, and spiritual upliftment, sealing what has been released. What comes next is not warning, it is rest. Now comes the assurance, not urgency, not warning, assurance. This is the calm that follows obedience, the peace that settles when alignment is complete. For those who have responded, truly responded, this is the moment heaven releases covering, clarity, and rest. You are not stepping into chaos. You are stepping into order. Divine order. God does not rush people into uncertainty. When He calls for immediate response, He also provides immediate peace. That peace is not emotional relief. It is spiritual confirmation. It is the signal that you are exactly where you are meant to be. If you feel a quiet steadiness now, that is not imagination. That is assurance. For those who responded, heaven has already accounted for what comes next. You are not required to figure everything out. You are not expected to force outcomes. The same God who prepared the release has prepared the path forward. Obedience did not drop you into confusion. It placed you into flow. This is where many misunderstand divine movement. They expect loud celebration or instant results. But often God seals obedience with stillness, a sense of being held, governed, guarded. That is what is happening now. The intensity lifts because the decision hath been made. You may notice that fear has less voice than it did before. That is not because circumstances changed overnight. It is because authority shifted. Fear loses influence when alignment is restored. Peace is not the absence of challenge, it is the presence of trust. Heaven's covering does not mean you will face no resistance ever again. It means resistance will no longer have leverage. You are moving from defense to position, from survival to stewardship, from waiting to walking. For those who responded, this release will unfold with clarity. Steps will appear when needed. Resources will align at the right time. Conversations will open without force. This is how divine flow works. Not rushed, not straying, ordered. It is important now to remain grounded. Do not rush ahead. Do not retreat backward. Stay attentive. Stay responsive. Stay humble. Obedience opened the door. Discernment keeps you walking through it. There is also healing being released in this assurance. Healing from disappointment, from delayed hope, from moments when you questioned whether anything would change. God is not only releasing provision, He is restoring confidence. Trust that was worn down is being renewed. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not catching up. You are aligned. And alignment redeems time. What felt delayed will be accelerated naturally, not by pressure but by positioning. Let this truth settle. Heaven marked this day and hour for you, and you responded. That matters. Angel's record responds. Alignment is witnessed. Decisions made in faith are never wasted. Before closing, a final blessing is being released. Type "I walk in alignment" in the comments if you have responded to this message. Blessing code 682 is now activated. This blessing is for covering, clarity, and continuation. May confusion remain far from you. May peace guard your heart and mind. May doors open in order, and may you recognize each step without striving. As you move forward, do not look back with fear. Look ahead with trust. God does not reveal moments like this and then abandon those who respond. He walks with them. He leads them. He sustains them. This message is complete. The warning has been given. The invitation was extended. The response was made. Now comes the walk. Quiet. Confident. Govern. What God has prepared will unfold. Not because you forced it, but because you align with it. As this word settles and peace covers you, hear this clearly. What God just did in you is meant to reach far beyond you. The Lord is saying that every seed released now becomes living water for souls still wondering, light for those still waiting, and fire that keeps this altar burning. I speak to you personally. Your support is obedience made visible, a prophetic action that multiplies impact. When you give through super thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are helping carry God's voice to those marked for their own appointed hour. This is not optional generosity. This is a divine response to what you have just received. I declare that your giving will return pressed down, overflowing, and protected by heaven. Act now. The PayPal links and QR code are in the description, and seal this moment with obedience.